Here is the camp of perseverance and steadfastness, where tents become a homeland and where the dream is crushed on the threshold of the 21st century. Over 60 tents set the scene for the story of thousands of Jerusalemite families and echo the anguish of ancient years. It is the same old tent that has not changed over the past 50 years, although the initial wound has become more painful. There it stands, a face for the sun, a reflector of light, and a bridge for the endless travelers to their destiny. Jerusalem, where rocks are the alphabet of the earth and reveal traces of civilization, where in its breath you can smell the odor of patience. Every pulse in it, every whisper, every grain of sand, and all that exists on its soil is proof that history cannot be stolen, that the truth cannot be forged, and that this city will remain Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the promise of heaven, promise of heaven.
للوحة جميلة تعيش في الأهداف لصورة حزينة عزيزة الجنان أهديت ألف قبلة ظلت على الأعتاب ناديت يا حبيبا ناديت يا حبيبا عصية الطلال يا قدس يا
It has been 5,000 years since the Jebusites inhabited Jerusalem. Then came its people, the successive tribes of Arab Canaanites. They were as devoted to Jerusalem as it was to them. It gave them peace and security. They gave it civilization and culture. In return, it gave them a flood of prosperity and blessings. The olive tree was always there as a symbol of love and a token of gratefulness. Over the years, it withstood more than 25 conquests, surviving them all. Now it stands with its kind people as a monument of history and human civilization. It is a city that is unlike any other city. Places in it take on a different face. Here exists a bridge that connects earth to heaven. Here flows a river of chastity, a celestial light that travels in the heart of lovers, casting its shadow on the rocks, the dwellings and the names.
It is an extension to infinity, to eternity and heaven. It is the land of Mi'raj. When Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, came to Jerusalem on the night of his journey to heaven, he led all the prophets in prayers in Al-Aqsa Mosque. This means that he received the banner of leadership from the prophets.
After that night, Jerusalem became the Muslims' first Qibla, the direction to which Muslims turned to when praying before Mecca. The Muslims visited it in their hearts before they visited it with their bodies. It lived in them before they lived in it. It is a relationship of love and yearning that cannot be satisfied.
People like to pray at Al-Aqsa Mosque because one prayer in this place is worth 500 prayers. I'm from Nazareth and my name is Nasreen. I like Jerusalem very much. Certainly I'm proud that I'm from Jerusalem, that my mother, my husband and my children are all from this sacred land mentioned in the Holy Quran. It's a great honor for me to have been born in it and for my son to have fallen martyr in it.
Here in Jabal al-Mukabar, Mount Scopus, in the year 636 AD, Caliph Omar bin al-Khattab shouted out, "God is great," when his sights fell on the holy city. He took over the keys to the city and gave the whole of humanity the Covenant of Omar, which has continued to light history with its humanitarian principles.
The Muslim Caliph Omar refused to pray in the church at that time because he wanted to show the world how religions can deal with one another and how other people's faiths and religions can be respected.
والمسلمون حينما دخلوا هذه الأرض قاموا بحقها عبادا لله.
When Muslims came to this land, they honored its rights as worshippers of God and builders of prosperity. They filled it with constructive work, cultivated benevolence, and nourished it with good deeds by the implementation of justice, taking care of the weak and bringing fairness to the wrong. This is what history tells us throughout the ages.
During the Islamic period, the city saw the zenith of its having flourished and of its human interaction. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, says, "There is a group of my nation who will remain righteous and victorious over their enemy. They will not be harmed by those who stand against them, nor by any disaster that may beset them, and they will remain so until they are taken by the word of God." It was asked, "Where are they, O Messenger of God?" He replied, "In Jerusalem and the vicinity of Jerusalem."
Al-Aqsa is the mother of civilization. Al-Aqsa is the treasure of the divine and prophetic treasures. Al-Aqsa is a world of art that has filled the whole world, or rather the world's museums, with antiquities, natural wonders, and the arts of past civilizations.
Al-Aqsa Mosque, Al-Haram Al-Sharif, the holy shrine of Jerusalem, encompasses an area of about 15 hectares. It takes up the whole area within the walls of the holy mosque of Al-Aqsa. In it there are several pathways and galleries constructed by various kings and rulers. A number of public drinking fountains, the most famous of which is Bai Fountain, and more than 25 freshwater wells. This is Al-Aqsa Mosque. The plan for it was put in place by Caliph Omar bin al-Khattab. Its construction was started by Caliph Abdul Malik bin Marwan and was completed by his son, Caliph al-Walid bin Abdul Malik, in 705 AD. In the years before electricity, it was lit by 1,700 lamps. He who has not visited Al-Aqsa, let him send to it some oil to light its lamps. Here in Jerusalem is the masterpiece of the world's domes, the Mosque of the Dome of the Rock, which some historians consider to be one of the most beautiful buildings on earth. Its construction was supervised by two Palestinian architects, Rajay bin Hayat al-Kindi from Bishan and Yazid bin Salam from Jerusalem. This was accomplished in 691 AD during the rule of Caliph Abdul Malik bin Marwan. The scale, which was the emblem of the Umayyad rule, was engraved on the foundation stone, and Surah Yasin, the heart of the Holy Quran, was beautifully inscribed on this monument. the heart of Palestine, whose throbbing will continue to vibrate with the belief in the unity of God. The holy shrine has 10 gates. Just as what is known as the Old City has 7 gates. This is apart from the other closed gates of the Old City and the holy shrine. The walls of the historical city were subject to demolition more than 17 times. After every demolition, they were repaired immediately. The last time the walls were renovated was during the rule of the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent in 1536 AD. They are bordered by 4 lofty minarets and 34 towers. In every corner, every inch of this holy place, there is a blessing, a sense of nobility and undying beauty. Here are minarets celebrating the songs of heaven, domes traveling through the pathways of ascension, niches whose compass points to the direction of chastity, and terraces embracing the memories of the faithful.
Imam Shafi'i came to Jerusalem and found a place to study at the door of the northern dome of the Holy Rock, which attracted a large number of people. Those who came to it also included Al-Maqdisi, Ibn Attar and Al-Ghazali, as well as over 1,000 imams who studied, taught and put their knowledge in the service of the people. Many took Al-Aqsa as an abode, knowing the blessings of Al-Aqsa and the blessings of learning at Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa is in need of clean and honorable hands, not polluted, profane hands, which are stained with blood. The faith of Prophet Moses called for monotheism and taught the ethical commandments and values. But these people have no values or ethics. Where did they come from? The poll tells you he has come to the land of his ancestors. It could not be true that the one who has come from Russia, Poland or Ethiopia has an ancestor who lived here once.
This is but a joint colonial Zionist conspiracy whose threads started to be woven in the beginning of the 19th century. Its intention became clearer at the Basel Conference in Switzerland in 1897 and in the Balfour Declaration in 1917, which is associated with the British colonization of Palestine.
لو عدنا إلى بداية تاريخه لوجدنا أنها بدأت بالضبط منذ عام 1800.
If we go back to its beginning, we will see that it started exactly in 1849 with the Montefiore Initiative, a Zionist who called for the construction of the initial settlements inside the Holy Jerusalem.
The Jews' point of departure for their conspiracy was from the Montefiore quarter. They carried their plan out in Deir Yassin and in the so-called War of Independence. They drew the plan of their march with the blood of their victim, and on the remains of the martyrs they established Gifa'at Shoal settlement and proclaimed their state.
When we learned of the Deir Yassin massacre, we left our homes. The women and children cried in fear. They said that soon they would massacre us. We want to leave.
Haj Uthman Hassan Khalil has a lot of memories around this cypress tree. He keeps the story of thousands of those who departed and did not return. These traces are the remains of his scattered heart. Here is where the wound began.
I am now 87 years old. I come to this place almost every month to see the land I used to cultivate and the place where I used to move about.
Today, Colonia no longer exists. They destroyed it entirely and turned it into a settlement called Miskarit. The village was colonized by strangers, repudiated and rejected by every grain of sand on this land.
After we left, 2 of my brothers died in 1967.
Jerusalem was occupied in 2 phases, 1948 and 1967. The latter was the culmination of a successive series of measures whose ultimate aim was to Judaize Jerusalem and to impose upon it a new demographic reality. Only a few days after the occupation of Jerusalem in 1967, the occupation bulldozers started demolishing the Maghrabi Moroccan quarter, which the leader Salahuddin el-Ayyubi had set as an endowment for the benefit of the conquerors coming from the Arab Maghreb and North Africa. Then the occupation seized a lot of the Islamic endowments and real estates, the most important of which is the wall of Al-Barak, where the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, stationed Al-Barak on the night of his journey to the heaven. They seized it and turned it into a temple which they called the Wailing Wall.
We call it the square of the Holy Barak, not the Wailing Wall. It is an integral part of Al-Aqsa Mosque. It is registered as part of the endowment properties of Al-Aqsa, and it belongs to Muslims.
What on earth are they doing? What on earth are they wailing? Do they have any sense of guilt for what they have done and what they are causing?
All those who saw the fire and heard about it came to the mosque. The vehicles that came from Nablus, Bethlehem and Hebron did not find any water in the mosque. The Jews cut off the water. The Jews closed all the doors and did not allow anyone to get into the mosque. The people forced their way into the mosque. There was a pulpit, Saladin's pulpit, of which only one small piece remained. It is about 1 meter long and is now kept in the museum. The people and the town residents saved it and fought the fire until late in the afternoon. We heard that after 8 months of trial, the court found him crazy. If he was crazy, would they have hosted him for 2 years in the kibbutz for training?
On the 28th of January 1976, the Israeli court issued a ruling allowing the Jews to pray in the holy shrine.
No Jew has the right to pray in our place, in this mosque. This is an Islamic mosque. It has been Islamic since God created humanity. They say they are the descendants of Abraham, but Abraham was no Jew or Christian. He was a Muslim.
There was yet another decision. It was taken by the Israeli Ministry of Religions, which called for turning Ribat al-Kurd, an integral part of the holy shrine, into a new, small, wailing wall.
This place has always been an Arab Muslim place. We have never had a wailing wall, big or small. This place, Al-Hadid Gate, they call it a small wailing wall. Whenever they see a big stone, they say this is a wailing wall, this is a temple. No, they have nothing here.
This is nothing but an express forgery, a wicked disposition of land and man. In what is called the Castle of David, the historical museum of Orshalim, they give no value to the Arab and Muslim symbols. Inside this museum, history has only one pathway, which ends with the alleged temple.
The Holy Mosque of Al-Aqsa is the crown of Jerusalem. We cannot imagine Jerusalem without Al-Aqsa, or an Al-Aqsa without Jerusalem. We cannot imagine Palestine without Al-Aqsa. Therefore, our eyes and hearts are surrounding Al-Aqsa. We pray for Al-Aqsa to remain there as a symbol of the earth's yearning for its creator, and for the suspended rock to remain a derivation from heaven.
Because graves have a scent of history, and because history betrays their fabrications, They continue their attempts to devastate Al-Rahma, Mercy Cemetery, which houses the remains of many of the Prophet's companions and many scholars, and which is considered the oldest Islamic graveyard in Jerusalem. This is what they did to Ma'aman Allah Cemetery, which accommodates the remains of 70,000 Muslim martyrs. It has been turned into a public park, a residential area, and a parking lot. But what about their graves?
Most of their graves are false. The Jews in this place, or in America, or in Europe, pay thousands of dollars to have the names of their false ancestors written on these graves. What crowns this tragedy is the continued excavation under the holy mosque of Al-Aqsa.
What temple are they looking for? What history? What history is that which allows its well-established and undisputed facts to be obliterated?
We are not fighting the existing antiquities because they are still there as physical evidences. But we challenge any claim of Jewish traces. Nowhere in Palestine have we found ruins that date back to the Jewish period. The Jews passed by this land as tribes of warriors, not as tribes of settlers who have lived on this land.
In his book, Outline of History, Professor Wells says, the life of the Hebronites in Palestine was much like the life of a man who insists on staying in the middle of a road with heavy traffic movement, with cars and trucks running over his body all the time. Their kingdom in Palestine from the beginning to the end was a passing incident in the history of Egypt and Syria, that history being greater and bigger than theirs.
Had they found anything, they would not have remained quiet about it. They would have made a big fuss about it. The attempts exerted by the Israeli authorities in Jerusalem, the excavations, tunnels, demolitions or confiscations have done them no good at all. Anyone who has read the books written by Jewish archaeologists would easily conclude that the Jews have no traces in Jerusalem, nor the temple they are talking about.
At midnight on the 25th of September 1996, and with the blessing of the government, the Israeli authorities opened a door on the side of the Omariya school to the tunnel that extends 488 meters underneath the Arab Islamic quarter of the Old City, along the foundations of the wall of the holy Al-Aqsa Mosque, leading to the wall of Al-Barak.
For 30 years they have been digging under the Moroccan gate. At first they sucked the water from the well near the place of ablution. There was a battle, and the mayor ordered it closed. Later on, we filled it with water again. They continued to dig until they reached the Islamic Endowment Department. The department building cracked, and thereafter it was surrounded with beams.
This tunnel is one of a number of tunnels that extend under the Old City, forming new bypasses, which are used by the Jews as temples.
Now there are two synagogues in the area of the holy Al-Aqsa. The Jews are planning to rebuild them overground once the temple has been built on the site of Al-Aqsa.
At the dawn of that same day, the Muslims learned of the crime. A volcano of anger broke out, announcing that the wound of Jerusalem is the deepest and the most painful of all wounds. In every city, village and camp, the crowds reiterated their allegiance to the resistance. They were competing for the ultimate honor, offering 73 martyrs and 1,500 casualties for the sake of our country.
In this very place, our brother, Ayman Dikaidik, fell martyr. The Israeli soldiers shot his brain out of his head. Ruthlessness, violence, and immoral practices, the Quran says about them, because they say there is no call on us to keep faith with the Gentiles, they consider it lawful to do whatever they like with the blood of nations and the wealth of nations and the sanctity of nations. Therefore, they cannot be trusted to fulfill a commitment or an obligation.
The latest incident of opening the tunnel was one of over 13 aggressions against the holy shrine of Jerusalem. The ugliest of these was the one that occurred on the 8th of October, 1990.
On that day, the so-called Temple Mount Faithful group placed an announcement in the local papers that they would put the foundation stone for the Temple of Solomon.
Their father had instructed his sons to rush to defend the Holy Shrine should it be subject to any aggression. Ayman asked his father to wake him up at 2:30 a.m. to go to the shrine. His father did so, and Ayman went.
We heard the screaming of women in the court of the Dome of the Rock. Too many people were there, and shooting started and continued for 35 minutes.
A doctor came to rescue one man, but the man asked him to rescue the other. Ayman did so as well. When the doctor returned to Ayman, he found him dead.
They cannot be human beings. They are monsters. Those who murder human beings inside God's home.
I carried Ayman and said, "We're all from God, and to him we shall return."
I wanted to fall martyr. I raised my finger and said, "I testify that there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is Allah's messenger."
It was Ayman's wish. He used to ask me to call upon God to satisfy his wish. He wanted to fall martyr in Al-Aqsa. Thank God he realized this wish.
Of course, it is difficult for us to part with him. Sadness stays in the heart. But Arif fell martyr, and everyone wishes to fall martyr.
Abu Snayne, Martyr Arif's brother, is still here in the honor quarter, which name has been changed and became the Jewish quarter. What a change in the meaning that is. It expanded in size from half a hectare to 13 hectares. Strangers now inhabit it. The original inhabitants were expelled. They were scattered elsewhere in the homeland, in exile, to become part of the 6,500 Arab citizens displaced in 1967, in addition to the 60,000 Arabs expelled in 1948. Today, the Jews are still going ahead with the war of eviction. They are using the temptation of gold in order to take what they could not gain by force.
Every day, many of them come to our home and ask us how much we want to sell them our house. We tell them we do not wish to sell it. We will continue to live in it. The one who sells out his house is like the one who sells out his faith. And this will never happen, God forbid.
The Abu Snayne family lives a lonely life in this place. They share their sadness and estrangement with this minaret, the minaret of the great Omari Mosque. Not satisfied with sealing up the mosque, the Jews set up a synagogue adjacent to its walls. The call for prayer was silenced. It was replaced with satanic rustles and whispers. The streets and pathways lament the absence of their kind inhabitants after ravens had mounted them.
The Jews beat me up on my way to school, and when I go out to the street, they beat me up. When we go out to the market, they sprinkle us with acid, and they snatch off our headscarves. They take us by surprise from the back and take them off.
What they are doing to the people in the Quarter of Honor, and what they have done there in the past, is something that they call coexistence. It is part of a huge record that is full of murder, displacement and robbery, known as the settlement movement.
We have lived in the Quarter of Honor. We were all Arabs, and there were no Jews amongst us. When Israel occupied the land, we left it. The Israeli constructed many buildings there. Now I cannot recognize the boundaries of the house where we once lived.
Situated on the holy soil of Jerusalem are 30 Zionist settlements that fall within the boundaries of the city occupied in 1967. They are added to the rest of the settlements that cover the entire area of Jerusalem occupied in 1948. They aim to obliterate the historical and religious features of the city, to strangle the city and surround it with settlements from all sides. They want to have a line of settlements to isolate the old city from Jerusalem, to isolate Jerusalem from the rest of Palestine, and to isolate the north of Palestine from its southern part. All of this comes within the context of what is called the Greater Jerusalem Project, which will swallow 20% of the West Bank area and will enable the Jews to build 15 new settlements around Jerusalem. Mount Abu Ghnaim is the story of a respectable companion of the Prophet, Ayad bin Hnum al-Khazraji, who camped on this mountain during the liberation of Palestine from the Romans. Caliph Omar bin al-Khattab designated this mountain to Ayad, who was succeeded by 3 sons, the eldest of whom was Ghnaim, the father of the inhabitants of the villages of Sur Beher and Tuba and other villages around Jerusalem. This mountain was in the beginning expropriated and declared a natural protectorate. It was a strategic reserve for the settlements. Today it is being prepared to accommodate 6,500 housing units. On the 18th of March 1997, in a huge military campaign, the Israeli bulldozers started leveling the ground to set up Har Homa settlement on Abu Ghnaim mountain, the southeastern entrance to Jerusalem. The Har Homa settlement is not the first, nor will it be the last episode in the settlement movement. After their cancer spread in the Silwan Quarter, we see them today in Ras Al Amud, in the heart of the Arab quarters, enjoying comprehensive security and military protection.
If they find nobody in the house, they go in, as they did in this house. Its people were out for dinner, and they broke into it. Now they claim they have bought it from the owner.
Palestinian citizen Ali Ahmed Hamdallah is the owner of the neighboring house that falls within the region that Moscovich has his eyes set on, and that is earmarked for constructing 200 housing units for Jewish settlers. A few years ago, he built a wall to define the limits of his land, but he was forced to demolish the wall. Despite all of this, Ali Hamdallah made it clear repeatedly,
before any settler gets in, I'll finish him off. Then I don't care if they finish me off and occupy the house. As long as I remain alive, they will never be able to get into it.
They are not satisfied with all of this. The confiscation of 30% of the properties of the old city after 1967 drew the Jews' attention to the Islamic quarters and instigated them to reactivate their presence in it at the hands of extremist Jewish groups.
The Jews are everywhere. They are here. They are on the wall. They have caused me a lot of anguish and suffering.
Haj Musa al-Khalez is 110 years old. He is a kind of pure gold that does not go rusty. His memories are part of Jerusalem's memory. The handcuffs and chains of Acre prison did not defeat him.
I have never parted with Jerusalem. It is not right to leave it. We are the men of the 1936 revolution. and sons of the precious homeland. Our land is our honor, and honor is very dear and cannot be protected with anything but the sword.
Hajj Musa has 3 sons in prison. They believe in everything their father believes in. One of them is named Yusuf, after the Prophet who was imprisoned for his chastity and beauty. He is serving 100-year imprisonment and 3 life sentences. By my hands Acre jail was built. The water of Acre's sea came from the tears my eyes melt. I received a letter, but haven't read it yet. I hope it is from the dear one, Yusuf. When true men cry, the inhabitants of earth and heaven are troubled. Tears flow upward to the elevations of faithfulness. The pain turns into an ever-rising sun or an uncompromising moon.
He said he would give me 200,000 Jordanian dinars. I told him that amount to me was not worth more than a sniff of snuff. He said he would give me 200,000 more. I told him this is nothing but another sniff of snuff. He said, okay. Here is an open check. I replied that it was too little. He asked, what could be larger than an open check? I replied, there is one thing. You bring me a paper carrying the signatures of all the Muslims on earth, all living Muslims, saying that they agree to this transaction. If you can come back with this paper, I will give you the house for free.
The continuous eviction of Arab citizens and the settlement movement has reduced the percentage of the Arab inhabitants of Jerusalem to a ratio of 1 Arab to 3 Jews. Likewise, the Arab properties went down from 90% in 1917 to 4% in 1994.
We could end up like the folkloric dress museum in Jaffa. We will be something rare and curious. This is what will happen to us in the old city. With these practices, what chance of peace is still there? What opportunity is there to talk about the future of Jerusalem? About the future of the mosques of Jerusalem and the churches of Jerusalem? What chance is there to talk about the future of the holy Al-Aqsa?
Percent of the total buildings in the settlements. Most are threatened with demolition or being considered in contravention of the building codes. Now there are over 300 houses presently owned by Palestinian families that are threatened with demolition, and over 31,000 Jerusalemite families who are homeless. But Biskat Seif settlement finds this a cause to rejoice, and it continues to build everywhere.
Most of these settlements are empty. They hope to bring in more Jews from all parts of the world. They bring in more Jews who are accommodated in houses that are complete with modern amenities. They are given cars, salaries and everything. They deem it lawful to expel us out of our land in order to replace us with Jews.
The children of the Jews have parks, play yards, schools and everything. But look at what we have. We live in these tents, in the mountains, and under tough conditions.
This is how they attempt to raise their buildings and to destroy every Arab feature in this city. This goes beyond the construction movement and affects the economic activity. Jerusalem was once one of the most important commercial and tourist centers in the region. But now we see it sink into a mire of unemployment and closure.
The economic situation is very bad. You can see the street is empty. There is no business at all. First, They imposed security closures on all of Jerusalem, but Jerusalem lives on the West Bank and Gaza. Now any shop in this mall is required to pay an unknown tax of about 18,000 to 25,000 shekels each. The market is closed. I have a shop there, but I closed it and have become a vendor using this pushcart. This shop opposite me is one of them. It is required to pay 100,000 shekels in unknown tax. The owner can hardly earn food for the family, so how could he pay the tax?
The systematic policy of dispersion persists in order to empty the holy city from its people, and to offer it on a golden platter to the Jews imported from abroad. Strangers have come to it. They claim they are affiliated with it, but in fact they are distorting it. They are spreading the seeds of terror at all times. They are besieging its atmosphere and defiling its honor, giving no heed to any ethics or values.
There is a mosque in Karim that has been turned into a den of prostitution and drug dealing. Every day a half kilogram of drugs is distributed to the youth of Jerusalem.
They have done more than that. While we were working on this film, something occurred as we had already anticipated. On the 31st of March, 1998, the occupation forces removed the camp of perseverance and steadfastness. Hajj Abdul Ghani al-Maimi and the others are left to their destiny.
We do not know where to go or where to live. We have to live with this difficult situation until God makes things better. There will be a way out, God willing.
At one of the barricades of instant death that one finds everywhere in the stolen homeland, namely at Tarkumia barricade, Muhammad al-Sharauni and two others fell martyrs. The occupation soldiers opened fire on them and killed them in cold blood.
The whole world should take it seriously, that if the Jews were allowed to persist in these arbitrary practices, they would leave no Islamic or Christian features in Jerusalem or in all of Palestine. They will change everything.
On the 30th of July 1980, the Israeli Knesset, with the unanimous agreement of all parties, passed a law making Jerusalem the unified and eternal capital of Israel.
Where is justice? You take from me my land and you displace me. Then you give me a small piece of land while I remain displaced. And you tell me this is justice? Justice will be achieved only if our people were given all rights they are entitled to.
As long as Israel exists, there will be no solution. They're the cause of evil.
It is impossible to accept the sharing of Jerusalem with Israel as a city or as a capital for two states. No Muslim, Arab or Palestinian in Jerusalem or in Palestine has the right to forsake, sell or concede any inch of Palestine. This land belongs to all Muslims. Palestine, it is an Islamic endowment designated for the benefit of all Muslims. If a certain generation of people choose to forsake their right, they will have to bear the guilt. The Muslim Ummah would never consent to such an evil thing and will defend the land of Isra and Miraj, the first Qibla, the land of steadfastness and jihad. The Muslims will defend the third holiest city in Islam by all means and will not spare a drop of blood.
Jerusalem was lost in a period of time when the nation lost its memory. The city had witnessed 100 years, during which Al-Aqsa Mosque was turned into offices, the Dome of the Rock into a church, and the Mawani praying place into a stable, and the call to prayer was silenced. Things remained so until God chose to have this dear city rescued from tyranny and occupation at the hands of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Following the Battle of Hittin in 1187, he entered Jerusalem holding the banner of Tawheed, the unity of God. He bowed in prayer together with an army of conquerors donned in iron garments. They prayed on the terraces that had received Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and his great glory.
كان من السودة أسيت الحج أمين. كان من السودة أسيتنا وشيت إخوتي.
Hajj Amin al-Husseini was one of my friends. We socialized together. Abdul Qadir al-Husseini, may his soul rest in peace, was also a good man. I also remember Izzuddin al-Qassam and Farhan al-Sadi. God bless them and all martyrs.
Hajj Musa still remembers the friends who shared with him the same wound, the vanguards who devoted themselves to defending the holy sands of Jerusalem and the entire Palestine. Hajj Uthman is still holding the key and is reading out to the homeland the chapter of trust in God.
We hope things will soon change for the better. Maybe it will not be too long before these children are returned to their land and to their homes.
One day they will enter through all gates of the homeland while they are chanting.
Jerusalem, may God save you. Our souls are devoted to you. If the word stretched out its hand to me, to it my hand will also be. Never ever you will give in. On tomorrow my hopes I pin. To jihad my heart and mind are set. I will never waver or weaken for a bit. Peace be upon you and all homeland. In your defense I will always stand. If arrows of tyranny at you were shot, my heart would be your shield on the spot.
واسلمي في كل حين واسلمي في كل حين واسلمي في كل حين